formation politique que j'ai repris.
Un an de plus d'immigration dérégulée.
France is faced with a hung parliament and deep political uncertainty after the second round of voting took place over the weekend. All the three main political groups, that's the left, the centre and the right, emerged from these snap elections with no one party or alliance getting a majority on its own. The preliminary results upended widespread predictions of a clear victory for the National Rally, which is Marine Le Pen's anti-immigrant far-right party. Instead, the left-wing New Popular Front, led by Jean-Luc Mélenchon, finished first with close to 180 seats. The centrist coalition of President Emmanuel Macron was in second place with 150 seats, and trailing it was the National Rally and its allies, which took 140 seats, pushed down to third place. In the first round of elections last week, National Rally candidates had emerged as the frontrunners in a majority of seats. It was clear after that surprise emergence last week of National Rally, which ended up in first place after the first round, there was a scramble by both the centrists as well as the left-wing alliance to form a Republican front. As a result, over 200 candidates in over 550 across the length and breadth of France dropped out of three-way races. They found one unity candidate who could take on Marine Le Pen's party. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who is the far-left leader, who is charismatic but also a polarizing voice of the left-wing alliance, he has now asked President Macron to call the New Popular Front to form the next government. But that is easier said than done. No side has emerged as a clear winner. France right now is looking almost ungovernable. The Paris Olympics are about to open in less than 3 weeks. The world's gaze is going to be on France. The left alliance did surge. The National Rally on the far right added dozens of seats to the National Assembly in its quota. And Mr. Macron's party, the centrist Renaissance, suffered a stinging defeat. His party lost about a third of the seats that it held in the outgoing parliament. The result was, it is going to be a sharply divided lower house of parliament, and there, no governing coalition appeared immediately conceivable. And France, unlike in Germany or in Italy, has no history of running coalition governments, leave alone running them successfully. Macron's call for early elections has now come back to haunt him and his party. He had called for snap polls after Marine Le Pen's party had emerged victorious in the European Parliament elections, which happened last month. Macron was hoping to throw down the gauntlet at the French people, asking them to make the difficult choice of electing an unelectable far-right coalition. And France's voters seem to have called out Mr. Macron's bluff. Even with fewer seats than what was predicted, Marine Le Pen's National Rally has now assumed an important place in French politics. For decades now, first under her father, Jean-Luc Marine Le Pen, and now under her, the far right had been built around a history of overt racism and anti-Semitism, and that, for decades, made it unworthy of being elected to office. Marine Le Pen has disavowed from that past. But even in its rebranded form, the party's core message remains simple, that immigrants dilute France and the French national identity. So, their response to it is tighter borders and stricter regulations, which are required to keep the immigrants out. The National Rally had even proposed keeping non-French-born citizens out of the state's social safety net, thereby creating two different classes of citizens. That, of course, was a wildly unpopular move. France has rejected that vision of the far right. They have voted overwhelmingly for change. It did not want more of the same, not more of Macron and the Renaissance Party. It seems to be a stinging message, particularly to the pro-business elites who were gathered around Macron. As per French law, Macron cannot run for office again, and he must leave in 2027 when his second term ends. The far left, the New Popular Front, campaigned on a platform that it would raise the monthly minimum wage across the country. It will lower the legal retirement age to 60 from 64, reintroduce a wealth tax, and freeze the prices of energy and gas. Instead of cutting immigration, as the National Rally was promising to, the left has said it would make the asylum process more generous. But this was also an equally controversial proposal which offended many in the heartland of France, many who were concerned about the boats of immigrants who've been coming in from North Africa. The New Popular Front, which is sharply divided between the moderate socialists on the one side and the far left, did very well among young people in the first round of voting. It also did very well in the housing districts that are heavily populated by North African immigrants around major cities, including the capital, Paris. Mélenchon has taken a strident pro-Palestine position, saying that France must even recognize an independent and free Palestine. Emmanuel Macron now appears to have two options. The first is to try and build a broad coalition which could stretch from the left to the moderates. It will also include some of his own disaffected elements in the Renaissance Party. This possibility, of course, is a bit remote at this stage. Macron, of course, has not made any secret of his intense dislike for Mélenchon, and that feeling is reciprocated. Both men cannot seem to stand each other. The second, which is a slightly less ambitious option, would be for Macron to try and form some sort of caretaker government under technocrats to handle the current business. Under the French constitution, another election cannot be held till at least another year. France needs to brace itself for some time of gridlock and political paralysis. Unfortunately, for France and the French people, it comes at a time when the world's gaze will be on Paris for the Olympic Games.